Hold your arm out in front of you. Now imagine a bird landing on it with a wingspan wider than your entire body, talons strong enough to crush bone, and eyes that had been watching you from half a mile away before you ever noticed it was there. For a group of people who arrived on a remote pair of islands about 800 years ago, this wasn't imagination, it was Tuesday, and their oral history remembered it as a monster. Science eventually proved they were right, but to understand that story, we have to go back much further than 800 years. We have to go back to before there were eagles at all, before there were even birds, to a question almost nobody asks. Where did the very first eagle actually come from? Start with a creature that shouldn't have existed. In 1860, quarry workers in Germany split open a slab of limestone and found something that broke every category they had. It had feathers, unmistakable, fully formed. It had wings, but it also had small, clawed fingers sticking out mid-wing, and a mouth full of sharp reptilian teeth. No beak, nothing like any bird alive today. They named it Archaeopteryx, and it sat exactly on the seam between two completely different kinds of animal. A small, feathered dinosaur halfway through becoming something else. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. The feathers came first. Not for flying, for warmth, for display, millions of years before anything grew wings good enough to actually get off the ground. Flight wasn't the plan. It was a bonus feature evolution stumbled into by accident. Then, 66 million years ago, the sky itself got cleared out. An asteroid ended the age of dinosaurs in a single geological instant, and almost every flying and non-flying dinosaur on the planet vanished with it. But a small handful of feathered survivors made it through, and they walked into a world with almost no competition left. Empty niches everywhere, empty skies, and they exploded into them, fast, diversifying into thousands of new forms in a fraction of the time it had taken to get this far. Somewhere in that explosion, a lineage broke off that we would recognize instantly today. Hooked beak built for tearing, curved talons built for killing, eyesight so sharp it makes yours look almost decorative by comparison. The eagle had arrived, and for a very long time after that, it had the sky entirely to itself, with absolutely no one around to notice. Which brings us to the other half of this question. Not when the eagle first existed, but when a human first looked up and understood exactly what they were looking at. The oldest confirmed image of an eagle made by human hands is a fragment of carved stone from the ancient city of Lagash in what is now southern Iraq, dating back roughly 4,500 years. It shows an eagle with a lion's head, gripping two animals in its claws, made by a civilization that already had cities, writing, and law, which tells you something important. By the time humans were writing anything down at all, the eagle wasn't new to them. It was already ancient, already mythologized. The actual first encounter happened long before that, in a moment nobody wrote down, because writing didn't exist yet to record it. Which brings us back to that group of people from 800 years ago. When Polynesian settlers first reached the islands now called New Zealand, around the year 1250, they found something that existed nowhere else on Earth. A landscape with no land mammals at all, no large predators, where the biggest animals around were birds, including flightless giants called moa, standing 12 feet tall. And hunting those moa was something no human being had ever laid eyes on before. An eagle with a wingspan close to 10 feet, talons proportionally larger than a tiger's claws, built to strike prey many times its own size. Maori oral tradition remembered this bird for generations. They called it the pouakai, a monster said to be large enough to carry off a child. For a long time, outsiders treated this the way giant monster bird legends usually get treated. Exaggeration, folklore, a story stretched bigger with every retelling. Then, starting in the 1870s, and confirmed more thoroughly a century later, paleontologists began pulling enormous eagle bones out of New Zealand swamps and caves, bones too large to belong to any living raptor. Genetic testing later confirmed it. a real, distinct species, now called Haast's eagle, the largest eagle ever known to exist, extinct only a few hundred years earlier, not long after humans arrived and hunted its only food source, the moa, into extinction along with it. The pouakai wasn't folklore stretched by imagination. It was a precise memory of a real apex predator, one so recently extinct that the people telling the story had likely known relatives who'd seen it with their own eyes. Somewhere in that overlap, for a handful of generations, an entirely new kind of animal, a human being with tools and fire and language, and one of the largest aerial predators the world has ever produced, shared the same valleys, looked up at the same sky, and each learned to fear the other for the very first time. Every eagle alive today, the one circling over rivers and mountains right now while you read this, carries a lineage stretching back through Haast's eagle, through the empty, predator-vacant world after the asteroid, through Archaeopteryx and its strange, half-formed wings, all the way back to a small, feathered dinosaur that had no idea feathers would ever be good for anything except staying warm. And somewhere in the middle of that stretch, a human being looked up at the sky for the very first time, saw something enormous and silent staring back, and had absolutely no name for it yet. We gave it one eventually. We put it on flags, coins, and coats of arms, made it the symbol of empires that no longer exist. But before any of that, it was simply the first thing in the sky that looked back at us like it understood exactly what we were.